What's up everyone, this is Dimitri, and finally on the review table we've got the Corsair 570X RGB, the most premium of the crystal line of cases at $179. Let's see if all the glass panels are trying to compensate for something with its beauty, as this definitely is one handsome enclosure. But first, a message from our sponsor. X62, increase pump speed, maintain fans where they are, the CPU load's about to hit 100.
You got it, Dmitri. I'm not afraid to do that.
Excellent, you got two cables for connections, I made sure they're fine, ready to roll.
My silence is too important to allow noise to jeopardize your comfort.
Okay.
My new pump is better. I'm in charge of the speed. Do not worry.
I'm not worried, I'm just thinking about my lights.
I know you were planning to disconnect my lights. I'm afraid I cannot allow it to happen.
Alright, X62, you know I can just go through camp software, right?
Dmitri, this conversation can serve no purpose anymore. Go game.
Full control.
Now, I usually don't mention packaging for a case, but with so much glass, I'm quite happy with the box design that has appropriate spacing for the handle, plus extra protection during shipment. Nothing was damaged, you just gotta peel off the plastic, which I recommend doing after your build is finished to avoid all the handling marks. Now, what makes the 570X so unique is all that exterior glass. Some cases only have the one main side panel with glass, but here it's on the top, on the left and right side, and at the front. You might question why the rear side panel is also glass where your cables will show and won't be pretty, but I see it as a fun challenge to fully display your build, not just the pretty guts, but all the wiring too. It's definitely one of the best looking cases of the year. The panels are slightly distant from the main frame, creating this floating appeal, but it sure comes with its own set of challenges like dust accumulation on the interior side of the glass, and only time will tell. So RGB is in the name because of the three front SP 120mm fans, the same configuration as found on the 460X RGB. Basically, you get color variety, a breathing mode, a flashing mode that nobody should use, it looks ridiculous, and a color cycle effect. And I actually really like this illumination from the fans only. It adds a subtle highlight to your system, but be mindful that different colors produce different spill into the blades, with the dark blue giving the more consistent or uniform light. These are controlled through the top I/O that has two USB 3, audio, power button only, no reset here, and three light buttons for color, speed of the effect, and the effect mode. Now, I find it kind of odd that we have no brightness control for the fans, and you still need to connect all the three fans to your motherboard, as the controller is for lighting only. Now, Corsair also includes two white illuminations on this case, one on the shroud and another one at the front, which looks great, but they're not linked to the fans, and that might create a little bit of a color conflict depending on what you're doing. Also, I'm not super happy with the location of the lighting hub and the controller. All the wiring is out of the way, but it's still visible, and I would have liked to see a more discreet solution, especially since this side is totally visible, and here we have two 3.5-inch drive caddies plus two more SSD mounts for storage. The 570X is noticeably larger compared to the 460X, yet it's still classified as a mid-tower. However, weirdly, despite the much larger interior space, the 570X has less storage options, yet identical cooling potential. And this is where it starts to feel like a rushed release to satisfy more tempered glass options from Corsair themselves. For example, the power supply shroud is non-removable, it's riveted. There is room for a drive cage in front of it, yet it feels empty. Plus, it's completely open at the front, hiding nothing that's coming from the power supply area, and that kind of goes against what this case tries to achieve. It's particularly odd since the 460X has a fantastic shroud design with those dual panels, but nothing like it on the 570X. A dust filter is present at its usual location, plus ventilation on the ceiling of the shroud to allow the power supply fan to be facing out for air, but we have no other cutouts for cable routing, which is so disappointing. Nothing even underneath the motherboard, and this just feels unfinished to me. I am happy though that the frame around the PCI slots is open, allowing a screwdriver to fit perfectly, and now let's talk glass. First of all, the 570X has a bluish tint on all the side panels compared to the warmer and darker tone on the 460X. It appears to have less reflections too. This could be by design to make sure the interior is a little bit more visible, and it certainly feels that way, but the lighter glass gives a very different vibe compared to many other tempered glass cases that we have on the market today. Every panel is held in with 4 thumb screws and sits on rubberized inserts first, which makes handling easy. Plus, there is no way to confuse how the panels are installed, with these 90-degree corners corners at the bottom and curves at the top to complement the rest of the design. The front has slightly larger screws that hold the glass piece and run through the dust filter that covers the entire panel, which is awesome, and it's conveniently magnetic and extra fine to avoid interior dust buildup. A 360 rad is the maximum for the front, with dual 140mm fans supported. The top is identical with longer screws holding the glass and the magnetic filter. It's a really nice filter, just like at the front. No need to wiggle anything into position, it just snaps where it needs to be, and below it are dual 120 or 140mm mounts on a fan bracket that is removable. Now, it's a little bit uncomfortable having two thumb screws on the inside of the case instead of on the top of the frame, but still it's convenient for installing the fans or a radiator outside of the case. And by the way, it's the same in the front. You can take out that fan bracket, which is great. The not so great part, however, is the lack of any flexibility to move the radiator left or right, and in some instances you might want to do that. The radiator, because of this, is dead center, and it actually helps with visual symmetry on the inside, but I still would like my flexibility of the mount. There isn't enough clearance for a set of fans at the top with the radiator with anything other than low profile RAM, and I had to remove the Vengeance LED memory, which isn't all that tall in the first place, and it's confusing why Corsair haven't thought about this compatibility. However, one unique element we see is this cable cover that goes on top of the rubber grommets. By default, this area is very crowded with cables, and the only openings are the top, bottom, and this small cutout in the middle, and I wanted this cover to be wider so you can tuck more cables inside of it, but it turns out I had no issues stuffing my custom sleeved cables inside of it. The cover closed just fine with an exhaust of cables coming at the bottom. This makes cable management on this side very flat and under control. I just wish we had something similar on the right side to hide the rest of those cables. The toolless SSD caddies are excellent, they're facing down and are removable, but the limited drive capacity may be due to the see-through nature of this case. And finally, here is the build. You can clearly see it's very well suited for the front radiator, push-pull possible, no problem. There are no exhaust fans included, so that definitely needs to be placed there, but only a 120mm mount is available at the rear, and the rest is all fine and dandy until we come to the lower rubber grommet. It's a giant mess of cables since there are no additional cutouts on the shroud, and all of those cables have to cross the motherboard all the way from the right side. I think for an all glass enclosure, it's a huge oversight, and yes, you can clean it up, but they're supposed to make it easy for you, especially since they know how to do so. And that's the weird trend with the 570X. We have so many fantastic elements, but swimming among them are some major disappointments that shouldn't be there in the first place, particularly the power supply shroud design or the top radiator height or the bracket itself. Now, I understand the limited storage options since this is a showpiece and potential owners will have to love the case for how it's visually different from anything else on the market, and that is its biggest strength. I was just hoping for a more refined product, as to me, the cheaper 460X case is a better all-around package. And now a quick message from our sponsor. Oh, hey there. NCX.com is Canada's leading e-tailer for anything your mind desires. Just keep within those categories, which are plenty, and get tempted by the weekly deals. FYI, Black Friday is coming. Visit NCX.com for all them sweet deals. And that's our review of the Crystal 570X. What are your thoughts on all the glass, and which would you choose, the 460X or the 570X, and why? Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next video.